Goddard is one of the best cartoon pets of the 2000s, and in one of the last episodes of Jimmy Neutron, he almost died.
Got a mad dog for you, Pitch. Need to put him, D-O-W-N-E.
That isn't a dog, it's a robot. Take him to the recycling plant.
Everyone in Retroville went from loving to hating Goddard within a day for something he can't control. Goddard would listen to how everyone felt about him and nearly do something he'd regret, all because of this one question. Can a robot dog be considered a real dog? We'll go from the love to the hate to the rescuing of Goddard. So let's say you have a robotic dog that can perform several things, such as flying, intelligent thought, laser eyes, stretchy legs, and so much more that you programmed it to do. Should you be allowed to take that pet to a pet show? Because that's what Jimmy does in this episode.
Oh my, there's the super brainy Jimmy Neutron and the shiny fantastic Goddard.
Fuse check, Goddard.
Hey! Is anyone gonna rescue that kid? No? I'm sure he's fine. Jimmy is going up against longtime rival and love interest Cindy Vortex and her pet Humphrey. While there are other pets in this pet showdown, they don't exactly showcase competitive pet abilities.
Say hello to Tito, the dancing worm. Watch closely as he does the twist, the Macarena, and the funky chicken.
While it seems like these competitors are random or to set the scene, they're actually quite important here. Regardless of the fact that their pets don't possess impressive skills compared to Humphrey and Goddard, they clearly want to win too. If you came to a pet competition with your pet stuffed llama, for example, you'd probably be disappointed if you lost to a super talented robot dog that can self-destruct and put itself back together afterwards too. Luckily, Carl wouldn't have to worry about that because his pet would get his head shredded off.
Weezer, it's just a toy.
No, it's not. I've raised him since he was only...
You're my best friend.
Oh, I miss this kind of humor that you get in the 2000s. The humor where it's just jokes left and right, everyone can get it, everyone's caught in the crossfire. Literally, Butch goes from ripping off the head of Carl's llama pet to getting knocked over to death to blowing pepper right in front of the judge's view and sabotaging Bulby's chances. It's a fierce battle, but we get to the two main stars who are already at each other's necks before they've gotten a chance to display their beloved pet's charm, wit, and skills.
Sing! Sing?
It does
That was my mother's favorite song.
I'm gonna defend Goddard in this episode, but humor me for a second. Is it more impressive to program a robot to do something impressive, or is it more impressive to train an animal that didn't evolve to do that thing, to do that same impressive act? Because as much as I love Goddard, I really do, training a dog to make noises like that is incredibly impressive. For Goddard, if he could be programmed to essentially do anything, wouldn't the limitations of an organic pet be more impressive? Or would it be that making a robot dog that can do anything in the first place completely blow everything else out of the way because no one else in Retroville would even begin to understand how to make Goddard? We're gonna see where the judges go with this, but honestly, their performances are a lot closer than the episode makes it seem. At least for me.
Roll over.
No contest. The best pet award goes to Goddard and his owner, Jimmy Neutron.
At this point, everyone loves Goddard, and Cindy is the only one who is vocal about not liking Goddard. As many may know from watching the show, Jimmy and Cindy fight a lot, and how much of it is because of their competitive spirits, how much of it was from the 2000 stereotype of boys and girls not liking each other to such a wacky degree, and how much of it was because they actually do like each other but societally hide it from fear of judgment by their peers, truly depends on an episodic basis. Again, all of this goes back to the question of, can a robot dog be considered a real dog? To those who've watched the show, Jimmy and Goddard have a real bond. They've risked their lives for each other. And I know as a viewer that Jimmy believes Goddard to be a pet. But where's the line? Can I get one of those iDogs from the 2000s that dance to a song you put on, take it to a pet show and plead my case if I considered it to help me out during my darkest times, during my loneliest times? In fact, do you even remember those dogs? You know what? Let's pause for a second. Let's look it up together.
12 seconds later.
Wait, hold on. Remote control robot dog toy? Look at this thing. In fact, real quick, this is not sponsored. I found it while trying to figure out the name of the music robot playing dogs of the 2000s, and the design is super cool. No wonder this generation looks at some of the technology we had in the 2000s and calls it trash. I'll defend Neopets, Tamagotchi, and Nintendogs to the death though. Anyway, getting back to the review. As usual, Cindy rubs it in Jimmy's face, but Goddard takes this personally.
Don't worry, Goddard. Goddard. It was just a stupid pet show trophy.
But Jimmy, it was big and shiny and it represented all that's good in the universe.
What this episode does beautifully is that even if you had no idea who Goddard is, they focus on him so much that you can see that he's displaying emotions. When we normally think of robots, we think of cold and analytical machines that lack the warmth that you can find with human connection. After all, who can relate to you more than another human? Or panda. But Goddard is different. Imagine having all of these talents in the world except being real and not having any way to fix that. What started out as Retroville loving Goddard slowly becomes into Retroville forgetting about Goddard and even starting to hate him.
Jimmy, we love to console you in this time of great disappointment, but Cindy's throwing a party to celebrate!
And this is just the tip of the iceberg. You're about to see plenty of instances where people throw in Goddard's face that he's manufactured while everything else outside of Carl's pet wasn't. If there's one thing that this episode does that I'm not the biggest fan of, is that there's only so many people who can get away with not caring about Goddard. Cindy, it makes sense. She was a competitor. Butch, well, he was a bully. He shouldn't care regardless. But Carl and Sheen?
Hey, Neutron! This would be yours if you had a real dog!
Come on over, Jimmy! This party's the bomb!
She's got little weenies!
And a real dog!
I'm disappointed to say this, but L Friends, in a show where they are not that careless as they are here. Jimmy would do his best to console Goddard, seemingly being the only one who treats him like a real dog who understands English and not speak about him so negatively, like in front of his face. It's so awful. They're massacring my boy, and it only gets worse from here. We see Goddard shaking as he sleeps, running through the events that happened today, processing the words that people say, calling him not a real dog, and thinking about if Jimmy would have won the competition if he had one. Goddard starts to contemplate, would Jimmy's life be better if he had a real dog? Mind you, Jimmy doesn't believe what everyone else says, but let's look at it this way. Imagine if you were friends with someone and everyone around you kept telling that friend that they'd be better off without you. If you keep seeing that friend have to stand up for you and be the only person who doesn't agree, would that put a toll on your mental health? How long would you be able to stand being perceived as a burden for something outside of your control? Oh yeah, there's also this.
Not a real dog. 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 Not a real dog.
So, let's get this straight. He woke up in the morning, managed a pet show, loved Goddard, then disqualified Goddard off the rules, presumably went to Cindy's party, then rather than taking his double-stuffed upper body and number 2 pencil lower-legged body to bed, he, and I cannot stress how crazy this is, stands outside the Neutron residence at night when everyone else is asleep, specifically to tell Goddard that he's not a real dog, with the most disrespectful finger wag as the cherry on top. If Goddard crashed out and blasted his man to the place where Jesse and James from Team Rocket couldn't reach with his laser eyes, I would look the other way. As you can tell, this is the straw that breaks the metallic camel's back. Goddard gives one final look to Jimmy before leaving him a note, walking out the door, and never wanting to be seen with Jimmy again. So this leaves 2 questions. How does this lead into his near death? And what did he say on the note?
Dear Master, sorry I let you down. You'd be better off with a real dog like everyone says. Your ex-pet Goddard, he ran away!
Remember, Jimmy never thought this way about Goddard in this episode, or really any episode. Jimmy really was the only one in this episode that defended him. In fact, what's funny is Humphrey, the dog that won, didn't even display any negative feelings towards Goddard. All of this is from the humans of Retroville. Goddard would take out his tracking device to ensure Jimmy can't find him and roam the streets of Retroville looking for a better purpose. The good news is he didn't immediately want to be destroyed, but the bad news is that the events that happen now lead to him being okay with being destroyed. Unfortunately, the other companions he tries to bond with either don't mesh well with him or don't understand his capabilities. It doesn't help that he'd kidnap a baby.
Doggy! Go, doggy, go!
Bark, bark!
My baby! Help, please!
Meanwhile, we switch from hating Goddard to needing to rescue Goddard when Jimmy would go looking for him and take those traitorous heathens Carl and Sheen with him. They partially make up for things with Carl trying to lure Goddard with his favorite treat, nuts and bolts, which hurts the citizens below.
Ah, my eyes!
Sheen also tries to look out for Goddard, but his poor eyesight is more of a burden. So you may ask, how does this lead to, you know, the scene you saw earlier? Well, naturally, this woman would reach out to the police.
I'll call the Air Force and we'll blow him out of the sky.
You can't do that! My baby's on that thing!
Yay!
My baby!
Gee, that looked kinda neat. Me next, me next.
Officer, that monster must be destroyed!
Outside of his comical buffoon persona, he's right. That did look awesome, and I trust Goddard with my life, way more than Six Flags. So that's how we get to the scene where he goes to the dog pound to put him down, but instead of the dog pound, they take him to a recycling plant. Mind you, Goddard at any time can get away. He's not gonna be overwhelmed by one cop who's holding onto him with one arm and wouldn't know what to do if Goddard started flying in the sky. He's okay with being recycled. He's okay with not being alive anymore. That's so messed up. Moments before he goes into the recycle plant, we see Cindy, who's enjoying her life as the winner of the pet contest. Unfortunately, there's one thing that Goddard doesn't have to deal with, and that's the instinctive hatred of cats. Therefore, when Humphrey chases after a cat, Cindy chases after Humphrey, and a big car is speeding their way. Guess which, quote, not real dog saves the day?
Goddard! Rescue mode!
Humphrey can't do that, and I'd argue no one in Retroville can do what Goddard did. Yet he gets no respect. Imagine if Jimmy never made it. Goddard would be half a 6-pack of Pepsi cans, and the other half would be an RTX 4090 powering an AI plant. All of this because of a pet competition where they all originally liked Goddard to begin with. Cindy tries to bring herself to just apologize to Jimmy for being so rude to Goddard, but Jimmy rubs all of this in Cindy's face, which I think is justified because Cindy did that to Jimmy earlier. All is well. Goddard gets an award for being the best dog because he is the best dog, and everyone lived happily ever after.
Ooh, there he is! I found him! Hey everybody, here's Goddard! Right here, look!
Look, I think Sheen is great, I really do. One of my favorites in the show, but they gave this man a show because of stuff like this. And I can tell one reason why it only lasted a season is all I'm saying. Outside of his Ultra Lord obsession and friendship with Jimmy, one of Sheen's underrated aspects is his crush with Libby, which I speak about in this video here.